Hello guys, Mr. Potato here. In today's video, I'll be using Unreal Engine to mash up the two most popular mobile games ever created, Subway Surfers and the iconic Flappy Birds. So without wasting any time, let's jump straight into it. To start things off, I went ahead and did some modifications in the character blueprints. I began by replacing the default skeletal mesh with a more basic model, which is a sphere. I chose the sphere because it was possibly the simplest form to use and the easiest to work with. I then applied the tactile pulse material, which comes in as a pre-made asset in the engine. The next thing I had to do was to blend in the mechanics of the two games, and to do that I had to mess around with the character's blueprint. I started out by deleting parts of the code which weren't useful and added some modifications to the existing ones. These modifications were to enable the character to go left, go right, continuously move forward and jump endlessly. Next up, I created a type blueprint which will serve as a player's base environment. In it, I used a cube and shaped it out to look like a plane, as it will serve as a main platform for the character to move on. I then added in an arrow component which will serve as a spawn point for the next tile, and finally a boss collision which will serve as a trigger to spawn the next tile. When I was done, I had to head over to the game mode blueprint to create some functions which will enable the tiles to spawn endlessly. I later on created an event which is responsible for spawning the tile endlessly, and this was made possible with the help of a loop node. When I was done with that, I had to get back to the tile blueprint and create an event overlap from the collision box which will trigger the spawning function from the game mode. Then I went back to the tile blueprint to create 3 lanes using our components which a player will use to move on. Finally, I went back to the boss blueprint to create 2 events which will permit the player to move left and right along the lanes, just like in Subway Surfers. And there you have it. The game mechanics were done and ready for action. The next step was to create the obstacles to use in the game, and since I wanted to keep it simple, I decided to go all out with spheres again. I then proceeded to create some materials which I used to distinguish the various obstacles, since I wanted to make the game easier and less confusing. When done with that, I went back to the tile blueprint to create a function which will spawn the obstacles randomly along the 3 lanes from before. I then tested the game and it worked well and the obstacles spawned as expected. Now what was left to do was to add some special effects to the game to give it more crisp. I started out by creating a destructible mesh to replace the obstacles and proceeded to add in some explosion effects to it. I later on replaced the static meshes that were making up the obstacles with the destructible meshes. And finally, created an event to kill the player whenever he touches the sphere. The outcome looked good and everything was working according to plan. To make the game look better, I decided to create a cell shader to apply to the scene. Then proceeded to create a score system to give the game more sense. Created a user interface for the heads-up display, a coin blueprint to be part of the score system, and finally a main menu. I also added some music along the way for the game not to look too boring. In the course of this development, I decided to upgrade engine versions from UE 4.16 to UE 4.25 since I had issues installing the Android SDK on the previous version. It worked well and I was able to play the game on my phone, but when I launched the game, I was greeted with some rather unexpected surprises. When I launched the game, I was greeted with this screen at the main menu, and when I tried to play the game, it wasn't any different. I later on figured out that was happening because of the post-processing. I tried all fixes but they all failed, so I decided to try another alternative. I started by removing the post-processing and it worked, but the collision in the obstacles were broken since I was using destructible meshes, so I replaced the destructible meshes with normals first. Another problem I encountered was that the game was very laggy due to too many meshes spawning in the world at the same time, and to fix that I had to add a delay between each tile spawning. I then went up to create cell shaded materials to replace the cell shaded post-processing. Then I added a near fade effect to the material so that the material shouldn't clip onto the camera. Added a curve feature to the materials to give more effects to them. And finally added some props to the game to add into the decorations. The building I used was a model I downloaded for free from TurboSquid, and I made the cactus myself using Blender. I tested the game and this is how it looks. The game is free to play and available on itch.io, while I'm still waiting to gather some money to buy my developer license from Google so I can publish on their Play Store. I'm sorry for iOS users, but the game is Android exclusive as I don't have money to support the iOS development. Once I get my developer's license, I'll take the game to the Play Store and alongside introduce the leaderboards feature. For features such as customization, it will come with an update, so if you want to know more, just stick around. If you have any issues or just want to reach out to me, my DMs are open on Twitter, link below. Alright guys, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe as it supports the channel a lot. On that, this is your friendly neighborhood potato here, signing out.